How to use JavaScript array method to transform element in an array. Sometimes you need to take an array, transform its element and include the result in a new array. Typically we use a for loop to iterate over the element, transform each individual element and push the result into a new array. Let's take a look at an example. Suppose that you have an array of numbers where each element represents the radius of a circle. Okay, let's take an array. So for example, this array which has a radius, okay, 10, 30, 50, and using this array we want to create a new array uh, which will have calculated value for area for the circle. Okay, so first of all we will use the traditional method. So we'll use area using for loop. Okay, so this is a traditional method we generally use. So in this method what we do, we will define first an array. Okay, so I will define an array called areas, which will be an empty array. Okay, then I will define a variable called area. Okay, and I will initiate the value to 0. Then what we used to do, we will define a for loop. Okay, and we will define it like let I equal to 0, I less than areas dot sorry, it should be circle dot length and I plus plus. Okay, so we will iterate through all the elements of the array, and what we'll do, area equal to, so we everyone knows, right, there is a class defined for math function called math. So I will use that to get the value of pi, math.flow, and it will be like math dot, I will take the value of pi, which is 3.141 something. Okay, and then it's the formula is pi r square, right? So multiply by circle I multiply by circle. So it's a radius square. Okay, and now I will push these values to the areas array. This is a traditional way how we will resolve the statement. If I now console.log, so it will be area using for loop. Okay, and let's see the output. Okay, if I run this out, we got an output as 314. This is the area which we got. Now it takes quite amount of time to accomplish this. Okay, starting from ES5, JavaScript array type provided the map method that allows you to transform the array element in a cleaner way. Okay, so let's see how it works. First, define a function that calculates the array area of circle. Okay, so what I will do, I will take this same array so that you will have a clear understanding. Okay, so let's comment this out. I will define this. I will give you a detailed description of all kind of methods. So I will give map method 1 to calculate area. Okay, so I will take the same circle area, circle array. Okay, and now instead of this, what we'll do, first we'll define a method. Okay, so let's define a method. So it will be like function, and this method, using this method we can create a reusable and clean code. So I have created function circle area. It will take one attribute, one input parameter called radius because it's required. Okay, and then we define return. What will return is like, we'll use the same function math dot floor. Okay, in that we will take math dot by multiply by. Now as we have defined the input parameter radius, right? So it's radius square, right? So it would be radius into radius. Okay, so what this function will do, it will take an input, okay, and it will calculate the area and it will return that area. Now how to use map? Okay, so to calculate this map, we will again define a array called areas. Okay, it will, we will take an array on which we have to do all kind of processing. So it's circles dot. Now we will use a function called map, and what it does, it takes an callback function which we have defined over here. So it will take circle arrays. Sorry. So it, we have to just pass the name of the circle, and boom, it's done. If I do again the console dot log, and if I do area for loop using map 1. Okay, so let's see the output, what we are getting out of it. I will run it out, and you can see the output is similar. Okay, so what exactly we have done over here? First, we have defined a function that calculates the area called circle area, then pass the circle area function to the map method. The map method will call the circle area function on each element of the circles array and return a new array with the element that have been transformed. Okay, now you can see over here the length of code has been reduced significantly, plus we can, this code we can reuse in the different functions also. Okay, now this second method, if we don't want to define a separate function for this, okay, then we can define the function over here itself. How we can do that? I will comment this part out. Okay, and I will take this one again for the sake of, I'm taking the same parameters so that it will be clear to you. So I will define it as a map method to calculate array. Let's take the same array. Okay, now what we will do, we will again define the output array called areas. Okay, again the same circle dot map. Okay, but instead of defining a separate function, we will define the function here itself. Function, it will have the same syntax, radius. Okay, and then we define the logic for the same. So I will take the same logic which we have defined over here. So we should use this approach. You can see the code length has reduced. There is no separate function. This function we should use when the callback function which we are defining, it's not gonna reuse again. Okay, so in that method we can use this out. I will do the console.array again. So let's do this console dot. This is a map method too. Okay, areas. It should give the same output. I've run the code and you can see we got the same output. Now as you can see, we start with 8 lines, it moved to 6 lines, now it's 4 lines of code. Okay, now if you are not satisfied with, if you are so lazy, and if you are if you don't want to type this much code also, then there is another method. So also you can make use of arrow functions in ES6, okay, which got introduced in ES6 to achieve the same result with a cleaner code, much cleaner code. Okay, so again we'll follow the same approach. I will comment this part out. I will take this up, the same set of information. Okay, I will comment the above one. I can call it as method 3. Okay, using arrow functions. So arrow functions are quite easy to use. So we'll again do the same approach. Let areas, okay, equal to circles dot map again. Okay, now instead of defining a callback function or defining a function, we'll use the arrow function. So what it does, we have to define first the attribute. Okay, let's consider it as area because it's an the input array of circle. It contains the radius of a circle, right? So it's radius, and what we have to do with the radius, we can define it with equal to and greater than sign, and it will be like the same function. No need to define return or any other thing. So I will take and copy paste the same, and now as you can see the code has reduced to only one line. Okay, as the code length is reduced, the complexity is reduced, and the chances of making mistakes also get reduced. Okay, now let's have again the console.log to verify whether whatever we are writing is giving the same output. So map 3 I will give. Okay, I will uncomment it out and we will run it again. Let's see what we get as output. So as you can see, using map 3 also we got the same output. Okay, so this is how we use a array method, a map method. Okay, so as we have seen the callback function, right? So callback function has, we have passed one attribute called radius over there, right? But there can be a multiple attributes to a callback function which you can define. So if we see over here, the callback function has primarily three attributes: current element, index, and array. So the current element is the current element of the array that is being processed. Means you can consider one entity at a time, 10, 30, 50, your current element. So you can pass it as a first argument. The second argument is the index of the element. Okay, so it takes by default, so it's like first index, second index, third index. Okay, index 0, 1, 2. And the third is the array. Okay, object being transferred means you, in the simple word you can say the original array. If you want to pass the original array and use it in the function, you can do that also. So out of this, the second and third attribute is optional and it's used in a really rare scenario. We'll be using only one argument for most of the time. Okay, so that is the one case. Now if this is clear, let's move to few more examples so that you will get clarity on the map. So for the next example, we will show how to transform an array of numbers by using a built-in method. Okay, math and callback function. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll take an array of numbers. Let's say let numbers. Okay, and let's define an array called 16, 25, 36. you must be aware that this is a square of 4, 5, 6. Okay, now we want to create an array which will give the square root of this numbers, okay, using map. So what we can do, we can define an array called result, okay, and then the same approach, the parent array on which the processing needs to be done, dot map, okay, and we'll simply use math dot square root. So what this function will do, it will take one element at a time. It will take a square root of it and it will push to the result array. Okay. Now let's do console.log and let's take square roots. Okay. And I will give it as a result. I will run it out to see the output and we can see the square root object is 4, 5, 6. Okay. Let's take one example on the object. Okay. Suppose we want to develop a code that takes an array of objects and creates a new array containing newly reformatted object. Okay, so let's consider an array called key value pair array. Okay, like this. Okay, so this is an array example. I will comment this code out. I will comment it out first so that I can share it with you. Okay, now I will comment this out. Now let's take this array. Okay, so it contains key value pair. Okay, now if you want to convert this array into something like this, okay, so what we'll do, we'll take key and make it as key. We take value, we'll make it a corresponding value for that key. We don't want to define two different attributes. Okay, so how we can achieve this using a map function? Okay, it's pretty easy. So again, we'll follow the same pattern. We'll define an array called, let's take reformatted array. Okay, I will take the parent array called key array. It's key value array I have given, and then map. Okay, now we will use an arrow annotation. So I will be like, let's consider the attribute as object equal to, okay, and now what it's like object and what we will do on that, or what kind of processing we'll do on an object. So we can define a function body over here, and I will be like, I will first create an empty object. Always use camel key. Okay, equal to, it's an empty object. Then what I will do, I will do check. I have taken the R object and I have taken the key dot key. So I'm defining this particular object. Okay, and it's equal to object dot value. Now we got this format which we are looking for. Now we'll return this object. Okay, so then return our object. That's it. In such a simple way, we have accomplished this task. Let's have a look at the console. So dot log. original array, which was KV array, and the second one is the reformatted array. This is the array. Sorry. Okay, run. Let's see the output. So we got an input as well as output as object because it's not a string or number, it's an object, right? So in order to see this object what value it's holding, we can use JSON.stringify. New thing to learn. Okay, JSON.stringify. So what this function does, it converts the JSON into string format, so it can be visible over here. The same thing I will do for this. Now let's see the output. So you can see the input was key value pair and we have converted into simple format. Okay, so this is all an introduction on the map, JavaScript map. There are different use cases on which you can use this map functionality and let's get the dependency on the for loop, because for loop is a primitive method and it's not liable. Also it gives processing issues also. Okay, hope you like this video. Thanks and have a nice day.